Levine Accident Attorney Studios.
The man your man could smell.
Theo Dorsey is theoretically speaking.
But are you a different animal and the same beast?
What does that mean, Kobe Bryant?
Streaming live on YouTube, here's Theo Dorsey.
The Miami Heat play a game tonight at Kaseya Center at home against the Chicago Bulls with their season on the line. Their final play-in game is very reminiscent of last year against those same Chicago Bulls. You win, you get into the playoffs, you play the Boston Celtics, a 1-8 matchup without Jimmy Butler. You lose, you're off to the draft lottery. And I got to be honest with y'all today, I got some cold, hard truth that if you're a Miami Heat fan, it might hurt your feelings. It might turn your own sensibilities on what you believed in me. Like, it might make you not like me as much today. But my good people, I got to keep it G with you. I got to be honest with you. It's Theo Dorsey here with Theoretically Speaking. See Cat on the ones and twos on the other side of that glass, and he better be thankful he's on the other side of that glass today, because I'm sure there's going to be some anger and hostility thrown towards me today. But that's what happens when you tell the truth. That's what happens when you're honest. That's what happens when you're genuine. And we learned that this past week. We learned that a couple days ago, actually just yesterday. And I'm sure a lot of you out there don't know who Paul Reed is. If I say the name Paul Reed, there has to come with an explainer afterwards. Paul Reed is a backup big for the Philadelphia 76ers. Paul Reed is also the kind of guy with not so much to lose, and he's not so quick to hold his tongue. He recently was on a podcast, and you know how NBA players and NFL players and athletes get these days on these podcasts. They're getting more and more comfortable. They're opening up, and the proliferation of these kind of outlets provide for great content. Here is Paul Reed. And C-Cat, what show was he on when he did this?
Do you know? FanDuel.
FanDuel with Kay Adams, right? I think it was the Kay Adams show.
It was one of their family of networks.
Okay, and on the FanDuel family of networks, here's Paul Reed when asked about the Philadelphia Sixers beating the Miami Heat. What was motivating them to do so? Because remember, in that play-in game, the winner gets the Knicks. The winner gets the 2-seeded Knicks and not the 1-seeded Boston Celtics. Any objective NBA fan can say the Celtics, 67 wins, better than the Knicks, 50 wins. The Celtics, Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, Drew Holiday, Derek White, much more formidable opponent than the New York Knicks. Sorry to all the Knicks fans out there. But here's Paul Reed actually admitting this, entering a matchup with the New York Knicks.
I feel like we ain't ducking no smoke, but yeah, we wanted the Knicks matchup. Of course, that's the easier team.
Now, I want you to listen to this again, because if you were just like kind of casually listening, you hear him say, we're not ducking any smoke. And it seems like it's also him kind of admitting that they weren't running from the Boston Celtics. But in that same sentence, Paul Reed, backup center for the Philadelphia 76ers, which is actually quite a pivotal role these days considering how much Joel Embiid has been laboring and the likelihood that he does go down at some point or for a quarter or even for a game or two this postseason. Paul Reed admitting that he, as he enters this series this weekend against the New York Knicks, believes them to be a lesser team than the Boston Celtics.
I feel like we ain't ducking no smoke, but yeah, we wanted the Knicks matchup. Of course, that's the easier team.
We wanted the Knicks matchup, of course. That's the easier team. Easier. That's your New York Knicks. I know there's a lot of Knicks fans out here in Palm Beach County and the Treasure Coast. He's talking about your guys, Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Isaiah Hartenstein. He's talking about your dogs, the Tom Thibodeau coached New York Knicks, the 2-seed in the East, the oh so great Knicks, the skies of blue and orange, all that fun stuff you guys say. Yeah, it sounds like the Sixers aren't so afraid of it. And on top of that, I know you saw earlier today Josh Hart saying, I don't care about what Paul Reed has to say. Isaiah Hartenstein was actually asked about this as well. And what I like about this most, when you start telling the truth, when you start being genuine with your answers and you're not giving that coach speak, that's when the fire starts to rise. That's when people start actually caring that don't care about Knicks Sixers in the first round. Now we're going to be locked in on the game. Here's Isaiah Hartenstein responding to that comment.
I mean, that's his thoughts at the end of the day. I mean, we're focused on what we got to do. I think that's what podcasts kind of do. They just make sure they get you comfortable, and then people just say shit. So at the end of the day, we're focused on us. Whatever comments they have, they have.
Yep. Well, I mean, I guess that's all you can do. And see, that's the coach speak side of it, right? He tried to downplay Paul Reed. He tried to downplay what he said by saying, oh, you get on podcasts, you get all high and mighty. But in all actuality, what Paul Reed was saying is the legitimate truth. If you want proof of that, I just got a text from my guy, Jason Parker, who says he's a Knicks fan. And what Paul Reed said as a Sixers player is right. The Knicks are an easier opponent. There was an added motivation for the Philadelphia 76ers with a hobbled Joel Embiid. The Philadelphia 76ers knew a 7-game series with the Boston Celtics, that's hell. And that's what's on the line for the Bulls and the Heat when they play tonight. The prize of that one is to get to play that behemoth of a team that earned the 1 seed and has been the 1 seed since the NBA season tipped off. All the way until now, the Boston Celtics have been the dominant team in the Eastern Conference. And there's Paul Reed admitting we don't want to see them. We want to see the Knicks. And I'm sure you Knicks fans have to agree, you are an easier out. Here's also, if you want a real objective opinion, if you really want to hear the truth, and that's what today is about here on Theoretically Speaking. It's Theoretically Speaking, but I'm spitting the truth today. I'm being honest. I'm being vulnerable because I feel like I have to be that way with you all. Maybe no player more honest, vulnerable, and open about his emotions and feelings about the game and just how he generally feels than Draymond Green. Here he is on the Draymond Green show, not just agreeing with Paul Reed, but also doubling down on something I was saying yesterday, that the New York Knicks, not only are they easier out for the Philadelphia 76ers, but I would have picked the Miami Heat in a series against the New York Knicks, especially with a healthy Jimmy Butler. Here's Draymond Green.
Paul Reed said it, I ain't say it, but the reality is we know the reality. The New York Knicks are way easier to beat than the Boston Celtics. In fact, I got the Philadelphia 76ers beating the New York
That's right.
Knicks.
Me too.
It's a fact, man.
I mean, I thought we were going to get to the second part of it where he talked about the Heat. We didn't get that part in there.
No, we don't got that part.
It's all good, C-Cat. I appreciate you at least hopping in there and saving me because I was going to wait on it. It was going to be a lot of dead air. I was going to wait on it. He later on went to say that he also would have picked the Miami Heat in a series against the New York Knicks. And I would even dare to say, even without Jimmy Butler, especially as a Heat fan, right? Especially as somebody who has praised and watched and rooted for this team from afar, even from back when I was growing up in Houston, always been a Heat guy. I would have been on board with the Heat getting past the Knicks if they would have been able to get over the 76ers. But that's not reality. That's not the situation. The Miami Heat now have their fate in the hands of another play-in game tonight against the Chicago Bulls. And in the theme of being honest, in the theme of sitting in front of a mic and spitting your open truths and being vulnerable, I feel like I have to do the same with you all today here on Theoretically Speaking. Now, I'm okay if you hate me for this take, and I'm prepared for that. And I know C-Cat and even people around the office, even other Heat fans in the office have been mad at me about this, but I'll just go out and say it. The Miami Heat will be better off if they just lose tonight. The Miami Heat would be better off, and I would dare say I'm almost rooting for the Heat season to end tonight in the play-in game against the Chicago Bulls. And it's for a varied amount of reasons. First and foremost, it's the team on the other side of this game against the Bulls. The Miami Heat are not going to have Jimmy Butler this postseason, right? We know that he's sidelined with the sprained MCL in the right knee. It says several weeks. In all actuality, he's sidelined for the rest of the season. For all intents and purposes, we're not seeing playoff Jimmy this postseason because it's over with for him, especially as the Heat try to limp through and get past the Bulls at home tonight and then potentially enter a series with the Boston Celtics. If you're a Miami Heat fan, look yourself in the mirror today and ask yourself this question. Do you really think, even with Eric Spoelstra on the sideline and with Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, Niko Jovic, who's looked good, like all of these guys that you have, these dogs, these warriors, these Heat culture guys, do you think that squad is good enough to beat the Boston Celtics with no Jimmy Butler? And if the answer is no, then the best case scenario for the Miami Heat and for Heat fans altogether is that this thing ends silently tonight at Kaseya Center. Number one, how often are you going to be professing that amazing play-in game win that you got over the Chicago Bulls? I thought we were once a proud Heat nation. I thought at one point as a Heat fan that we're out here counting banners and not play-in wins, let alone playoff series victories. If you really believe in what the Heat have going forward with a Jimmy Butler that's going to be 35 next year and a roster that even if fully healthy this year, it was going to be a struggle for them to limp through the playoffs again like they did last year and try and hang another banner up there in Kaseya Center. As a Heat fan, you count banners. And right now there's just 3 up there. And if you really want for this era's team, led by Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, to be able to hang another banner in Kaseya Center over the next couple of years, the best thing for the Miami Heat is to go out silently tonight against the Chicago Bulls. And it's funny that I say this on a day like today because I felt similarly like this last year when the Heat were in the same predicament playing against the Chicago Bulls in the second play-in game, especially when they went down late in the game and it looked like the season was all but done. And the funny thing is, every single time I start to doubt the Heat publicly, every single time I start to open up and feel vulnerable about maybe this team can't do it, that maniac on the bench, Eric Spoelstra, and those guys in those Heat uniforms always find a way to work it out and win those kind of games. So I already know that now that I'm publicly saying the Miami Heat should lose tonight, that it will be better for the franchise to get a lottery pick and have a better chance at maybe getting a top 4 pick and bringing in a guy that can help out this abysmal offense. They'll likely find a way to beat the Bulls tonight. I still think it would be best for the Heat. It would be best for the next couple of years if they were able to lose this game, get their lottery pick, and not even waste our time against the Boston Celtics. But playoff Jimmy's not showing up. The only guy in the NBA since Jimmy Butler joined the Miami Heat, the only player in the NBA with more points in the postseason than Jimmy Butler is Jason Tatum with the Boston Celtics. And this year, Jaylen Brown has ascended to a level where he also looks like an all-NBA player, an all-NBA talent with those Boston Celtics. Kristaps Porzingis' injection into that lineup makes them even more of a threat. And if you think about the way that the Celtics team is built this year, it really feels like they were built. What they're doing out there in Boston is a direct result of what the Heat have done and the way that the Miami Heat have haunted them over the past 3 or 4 years in the postseason. If you want to really take some solace in anything this NBA postseason, just know that for every win the Celtics get, it feels like that's a bit of a Heat creation because that was a response. You would think that if you have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Derek White and all of the guys that have been there for so long, they wouldn't have to make such a swift change this past offseason and bringing in guys that are true either veteran winners in Jrue Holiday or Kristaps Porzingis, who's a freak when it comes to size and shooting. He gives you some rim protection as well. Like Kristaps Porzingis is going to make it a tough matchup for anybody throughout this postseason. But if you think about it, it was the Celtics losing in the conference finals last year to the Miami Heat that forced that front office into action, that forced them to make some very, very harsh changes to that roster so that now the Celtics are in prime position to win a NBA championship. And if you're a fan of the team like a Lakers, if you're a fan of the team like a Celtics or a Miami Heat fan, you're not counting play-in wins, you're not counting playoff victories, you're counting championships. And the closest route to the Heat winning an actual championship would not be beating the Chicago Bulls tonight. It will be them losing, getting a better draft pick, and then finally for an offseason taking a big swing on a talent that can help in the half-court offense. You didn't get Jimmy Butler any help last year in the form of Dame Lillard, and you didn't go out and get James Harden when you could have got him. You've hung on to Tyler Hero, who in a play-in game where you need a win against the Sixers, on 27 shots, he gives you 25 points, and he looks scared. He looks absolutely petrified to take shots in pivotal moments. On a day where I'm leaning off of what I heard from Paul Reed and even the responses from the Knicks players, we're telling the truth here. We're being open. We're being vulnerable. I'm going to do the same as a Heat fan, and I'm going to say it will be best for the Miami Heat to lose tonight. Get it over with and keep it pushing next year into the offseason, and maybe that'll push Mickey Arison, and maybe that'll put Pat Riley into a position where he knows now we have to actually do something. Jimmy Butler's not getting any younger, and as it seems, Tyler Hero's not getting any better in these pivotal moments. What the hell are you going to count on next year if Eric Spoelstra does squeeze what's left out of this roster and get some wins? All I'm saying is this. I'm being honest. I'm being truthful, right? And I want you to probably do the same. I know it's not easy. but I'm going to open it up for you to do the same here on this show. Say the quiet part out loud here on Theoretically Speaking. Say the quiet part out loud like I just did. I know I'm not the only Heat fan that feels this way, but we've been so trained and ingrained to just believe and fight and whatnot. The Heat aren't rolling over tonight. Believe you that. The Heat won't do it, and I don't expect them to do it, and I wouldn't want to root for a franchise that went out and did that. Eric Spoelstra's going to coach those guys up. You see the messaging that's coming out of the team's locker room. They believe they can win tonight, and they likely believe they can beat the Celtics. I'm married to reality, and the truth hurts. And insanity is continuing to do the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And if this Heat team wins tonight and tricks itself into believing they have a strong enough roster, if healthy, to go back in the next season and do the same thing, we're all idiots for falling into that trap. But you tell me the truth about your team today. Take some of that truth serum that Paul Reed gave us. Can we hear Paul Reed one more time? Paul Reed, backup center for the 76ers, admitting that the motivation to beat the Heat the other night was because they kind of didn't want to play the Celtics. They'd rather play the Knicks.
I feel like we ain't ducking no smoke, but yeah, we wanted the Knicks matchup. Of course, that's the easier team.
Talk truth to me. Tell me the truth. Let me know the quiet part out loud. What would you like to open up with us here on a Truth Serum Friday? Call it a Truth Serum Friday on Theoretically Speaking with myself and C-Cat. Let us know the quiet part out loud. And if you think that I'm wrong about this Miami Heat thing too, which, I mean, to be honest with you, I know I'm right. You got to be a fool. You got to be an idiot to think that that would be what's best for them is, oh, I'm going to be telling my grandkids decades from now, but remember that time we beat the Bulls in the play-in and then got swept by the Celtics in the next round? Wouldn't that just so fun? No, I'm talking about the banners that were raised in 12 and 13 or in 06 with Dwayne Wade. Those are the years that you'll be glamoring about and talking about, not a play-in win in April at Kaseya Center. Hit us up on the Baptist Health Hotline here on Theoretically Speaking, 888-760-3776, 888-760-3776. Just take a little bit of that truth serum. What would you like to say the quiet part out loud? Jason Parker, my friend, already texted me the quiet part out loud for the Knicks. He admits the Knicks are a worse team than the Celtics. They are an easier out than the Celtics, and the Sixers are right to be motivated to beat the Heat so they can play the Knicks. I wish the Heat would have been good enough to be able to beat the Sixers there. 888-760-3776, 888-760-3776. That's the number to join the show. That's the number to call in. And I know one person that wouldn't be happy about my take here, and I kind of wish I could just separate him from this, but that's Ed Sasso, the founder of EDS Air Conditioning and Plumbing. When we were out at that Heat game the other day, and we were both rooting on the Heat in what felt like a must-win game against the Dallas Mavericks, he was much more confident and fortified in his seat than I was. I was sick watching that half-court offense struggle to get points against a Mavericks defense that can be had. I was sick. I'm calling for changes right here mid-game. Jaime Jaquez Jr. looked good. Kevin Love looked good. You can count on them sometimes, but the rest of that team in the half court, it was hit or miss. Tyler Hero, hit or miss. What's never hit or miss is EDS Air Conditioning and Plumbing. EDS is yes. EDS Air Conditioning and Plumbing. I've been a gold member now for going on a year. And as a gold member of EDS Air Conditioning and Plumbing, the beauty of it is you don't have to be worried. You don't have to be concerned because you get 2 annual checkups. And on those checkups, it's not just about repairs. It's about preventative care, checking on your AC unit, checking on everything to make sure that the lines, everything's working properly. There's no kind of backup. I know that before I was a gold member, there would always be a problem that stirred up. And when it did, guess what? I was hung out to dry, right? That's when the house starts overheating. That's when the wife calls me complaining, and I got to call in for emergency text to come in and save the day. That costs you hundreds and hundreds of dollars, let alone what the actual repair costs. But when you hop in with EDS Air Conditioning and Plumbing, you become a gold member like myself, you can get locked in, and you can know that you are protected for the future, and you'll have some annual checkups. They are a trained comfort specialist, and it's very hard to stop a train. EDS Air Conditioning and Plumbing, they can help you with everything with your air conditioning and plumbing needs. And if you ask me, I say you lock in on that gold plan, edsairconditioning.com to lock in with them. 888-760-3776, 888-760-3776. That's the number to call in. You can be honest here. It is a safe space. What's the quiet part out loud about your favorite team? Because as a Heat fan, I think going into tonight, we're less than 2 hours from tip-off? C-Cat, I know I'm going to catch some hell for this, and I already have a little bit on Twitter. I just don't think it's best for them to win it. Is that crazy to hear, C-Cat?
No, I think it's looking farther than your nose, right? It's understanding that sacrificing one more series in 2024 for the better chance at getting 4 more series en route to a finals next year, the year after that, I think it's well worth it.
What good is a playoff berth for the Miami Heat? What good is a play-in win when your ultimate goal is a championship? If the Heat just make the playoffs and get swept by the Celtics, that's a failure. That's a bad year. That's a lost year in the archives of the Miami Heat franchise. But if the Heat get into the lottery and they have a 2%, 3% chance of getting into the top 4, but even a top 13 pick, later on I'm going to go through the list of what the Heat have done in the NBA draft over the past 5, 6, 7 years. It is beautiful. They've drafted well. How about you load up on the arsenal that you do good on when it comes to the NBA draft, and you retool this roster? This roster is not built to win a championship right now. This roster is built, obviously, to make the play-in and then put it up in the air for chance. And what are our chances tonight? Now you're a slight favorite at home against the Bulls to even make the playoffs. That's not good enough. Devontae is in Atlanta. Devontae is on Theoretically Speaking, and we're going to give you a little truth serum here. We're giving you some truth serum, Vontae. What do you want to be truthful about here on a Truth Serum Friday on Theoretically Speaking?
Well, I actually had a question for you.
What up?
Pertaining to the Miami Heat. Okay, who do you realistically see getting back to the finals first? Jimmy Butler in Miami or Curry with the Warriors?
Oh.
Based on how the team is constructed now. I need some truth serum.
That's a great one. That is a good one. And hold on. So one caveat. You said Curry has to remain with the Warriors, right? It's not like he could leave or get traded. It has to be Curry with the Warriors and Butler with the Heat.
Both of them staying. Yep, both of them staying.
Man. Okay, you know what? I'll be honest with you. I would go Jimmy Butler in the Miami Heat. Not just because of how stacked the West is right now, and the Western Conference is clearly the more superior conference. I do believe that if/when the Miami Heat lose tonight against the Bulls, the front office will be forced into action. And Dame Lillard might be up for grabs this offseason. There's going to be many players up for grabs, and having an extra lottery pick to package to go get a star or even draft a guy moves the Heat a little closer. I don't think there's enough the Warriors can actually do because they're so married to their stars to do it. But what do you think? Give me your thoughts right before we go to break. Would you go with the Heat and Jimmy Butler or Curry and the Warriors?
I personally would say the Warriors.
Wow.
All they really need is one piece. If they get one big free agent, just say later on a big free agent come up and they have to get off somebody or whatever the case is. Just say Clay takes a pay cut. They got the same three, Draymond, Curry, and Clay. And then you just add one more star. They got young people to play defense and everything else. They really just missing one piece.
Right. And I get you. I appreciate the call, Vontae. I will say one thing about the Warriors missing one piece. They're also missing cap space. They're deep into the luxury tax. So I don't know if that's going to be working. But you know what? Your point would stand, theoretically speaking. When we come back, we got to get around. We're bringing back the famed segment, the Get Around. We're going to bounce all around, including another attack on New York sports fans. So I'm sorry if you want to hear this, but it's about the Jets, and it ain't looking good. It's Theoretically Speaking on ESPN 106.3.
Live from the Anajar and Levine Accident Attorney Studios. Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Call 1-800-7